A village where people were scared to sleep, not because of nightmares, not because of fear of the dark, but because once they closed their eyes, no one knew when they would wake up again. Sometimes it was a few hours, sometimes it was days. This actually happened in a real place called Kalachi. At first, nothing about this village seemed unusual. It was small, quiet, and ordinary. People followed their daily routines and life moved at a normal pace. Then something strange began. One man suddenly fell asleep during the day. It didn't look serious. People assumed he was tired. Maybe he hadn't slept properly the night before. But then the same thing happened to someone else. And then again, after a few incidents, it stopped feeling normal. These were not cases of tiredness. People were losing consciousness without any warning. It could happen anywhere, during a conversation, while walking on the street, even inside classrooms. There was no signal before it happened, no dizziness that gave you time to react. One moment, everything was normal, and the next moment, the person was completely unconscious. At this point, people were confused, but what came next made the situation much more serious. Some people woke up after a few hours, but others did not wake up for a long time. In several cases, people remained asleep for 2, 3, or even more days. When they finally woke up, they were not the same. Many of them were confused. Some could not remember what had happened before they fell asleep. Others struggled to understand where they were. A few people described something even stranger. They said they saw things that did not exist. Unfamiliar shapes, moving figures. For them, those experiences felt completely real. This was no longer just a medical issue. It felt like something much deeper. As more cases appeared, fear started spreading across the village. More than 100 people were affected. For a small place, that number was alarming. People started living carefully. Parents kept watching their children. Families stayed alert because no one knew when it might happen again. Doctors were called. Medical teams examined the patients. Researchers began studying the situation. But the results did not give clear answers. There was no infection, no known disease, nothing that could fully explain the condition. That made the situation more dangerous, because without a clear cause, there was no clear solution. Scientists then began to study the environment. They looked at the air, the water, and the surroundings of the village. That is when attention shifted to something nearby. Old uranium mines. These mines had been abandoned years ago. During investigation, certain gases were detected in the area. One of them was carbon monoxide. This gas cannot be seen or smelled, but it can affect the human brain. When it enters the body, it reduces oxygen levels. This can cause dizziness, weakness, and loss of consciousness. At this point, the theory started to make sense. It could explain why people suddenly lost consciousness, but it still did not explain everything, because carbon monoxide does not usually keep a person asleep for several days. It does not clearly explain the memory loss, and it does not fully explain the hallucinations, so the explanation felt incomplete. Some researchers suggested that this was not caused by a single factor. It could be a combination: environmental conditions, gas exposure, and possibly other unknown elements. Even after detailed studies, there was no single answer that explained every case. Meanwhile, life in the village was changing. People were no longer living normally. There was always a sense of uncertainty. At any moment, without warning, anyone could suddenly lose consciousness. Eventually, authorities made a decision. Many residents were relocated to safer areas. Families left their homes behind. Over time, the village became almost empty. Today, the story of Kalachi is still remembered as one of the most unusual cases ever recorded. There are explanations, there are scientific theories, but none of them fully answer every question, because something about this situation still feels incomplete. Sleep is something people trust. It is natural. It is part of everyday life. People close their eyes expecting to wake up soon after. But in this village, that expectation was never certain. And that is what made it truly disturbing. Because when something as normal as sleep becomes unpredictable, it changes everything.